everyone?
We
are
back,
baby. That's right, after a long hiatus, the gaming family is finally back and better than ever. With our new rebranding as the Gaming Family 2, we can finally tackle something that's been haunting us since our inception.
As we all know, video games are full of characters. Some are loved, some are memorable, and some we just absolutely cannot stand. Whether they're annoying, disgraceful, or outright villainous, as gamers, we all have characters that are truly deserving of our rage.
With a topic filled with such infamy amongst this community, this is truly a project not worth fighting alone. Through this collective we have rounded up, we will be tackling 15 of our personal most hated video game characters. But first, some rules.
We'll be judging these characters off a multitude of our own criteria, through their personalities, their roles in the story, how they play, and their overall actions. These are some rotten characters that we will not hold back on.
And don't forget, we will only be picking one character per franchise because some series in particular have a tendency to dish out some duds, and we don't want them to overflow the list. So, without further ado, let's do this!
Sorry. I don't keep a death diary. And in case you're wondering, I'm even stronger now. You will lose! You've got no chance of winning this! You're something else. I haven't been so worked up in ages. When you see your bro in hell, tell him he's still a douche!
Hey Atlas, it's me again, and please don't delete this, it's not about a P3 remake this time, I swear. I just had a question about Persona 4. I love the characters, I love the plot, but there's something about the villains that stuck out to me. Namatame is wonderfully written, Adachi is a fucking great take on viewing society. But why the fuck does Mitsuo Kubo have any reason to exist in any game? Mitsuo Kubo, let's start off with the two most noticeable traits of any character, your design and personality. Firstly, your design looks like a beta reject from this game, and even then the beta designs of this game look 100 times better than you. Your personality? Oh, you're just the embodiment of nice guys finish last or straight white boy texting, with your first interaction in the game being rejected and calling the one that rejected you a bitch. Wonderful start, am I right? Besides harassment charges, what Mitsuo Kubo does to the plot of Persona 4 is he claims to be the culprit of the mass murders of Inaba that have been happening since the protagonist has moved into the city, which, as a result of him actually killing Moroka, your homeroom teacher, makes it seem legit, which in essence, and plot spoilers, he isn't, is really a waste of time. So as a result of that, the investigation team checks out the Midnight Channel, turns out he's on there, so the chase is on. You go into the TV world and you get introduced to Void Quest, his dungeon, which... God, I really don't like this place. I'll give it props, the music of it is fucking amazing, but it gets annoying after having to grind a few hours in there because his boss fight... Oh boy, where do we begin on that? Having an annoying phase where you can't even do damage to the real boss. Check. Having the shadow be a fetus. Check. Having that phase regenerate. Check. Having the ability to do 2 attacks per turn. Check. God, this makes him so fucking annoying. And you know the worst part about this shadow? Every shadow, even the main villains, Namatame and Adachi, their shadows make them realize, wow, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or wow, maybe this is a part of me I need to accept. Mitsuo's just literally disappears. No reason to exist. It's just like him. He shouldn't exist. So Atlas, I have a proposal for you. In a new patch for Persona 4 Golden, or just another remake since you guys like milking this game so much, just remove Mitsuo from the game. It won't make any difference, honestly.
poetic justice.
Jasper Bat Jr.
How could we have a list without Bastard Twat Jr.? What?
It's a tale as old as time. Jasper Bat Jr. is a bad boss fight because it's unfair and he's annoying and it gets a 2 out of 10. Good music, but it gets a 1 out of 10 and that's completely unchangeable. But through a certain postmodern neo-Marxist what am I doing with my life analysis of the game No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle, one can come to a different conclusion. Because when we stop looking at what it's supposed to be or what it was intended to be and just look for what it is, something beautiful happens. Jasper Bat Jr., precisely for its hateability and aggressive suck, perfectly concludes the emotional and thematic through line of the first 2 NMH games. There's a certain distressing element to the extent players can relate to Travis Touchdown. Sure, he's badass, does snazzy one-liners and owns a beam katana, but he's also a total loser and weird, creepy misogynist. The first game acts as a reflection of our culture's fetishization of violence and power fantasy by applying tropes used in those kinds of media to a more realistic setting and playing with the dissonance between those ideas. The second game seems to go in a more lighthearted direction before doubling down hard at the end, delivering first an emotional turning point for Travis, then applying the idea of the non-satisfaction of revenge directly to the player themselves with the most detestable and frustrating boss fight of the entire franchise. But if video games are to be accepted as an art form and not merely the fulfillment of vacuous power fantasy, they must be able to convey emotions other than mere satisfaction.
We need to accept there is beauty in that which frustrates us, and Jasper Bat Jr. It's high motherfucking up.
Every aspect of this character and boss is hateable. It starts with him pretending he's killed all your buds, the phases of the battle are extremely unbalanced with a huge spike in difficulty between them, and applying random insta-kill deaths later on. And just look at that extremely unepic design, fusing the worst colors I've ever seen with a pizza, for some reason tattooed onto the side of his face. Every design and mechanical aspect smacks of lazy and most likely unintentionally terrible game design, and yet it fits seamlessly into the themes and message of the game. Why would you deserve satisfaction after all the colourful characters you've murdered? Dr. Peace, Destroy Man, Margaret Moonlight, the author... Don't you hate it when games artificially buff up antagonists for a tougher finale? Here's Pizza Kid in a muscle suit. Don't you hate it when games waste their suspense and build up with overly silly final bosses? Here's following a meaningful reflection on perpetual violence with Laser Sword versus the wobbly-nosed baby balloon. And none of your attacks feel like they should register and the camera goes full jank. It's just perfect. It's trash. It's peak perfect trash. I hate this character, but like a burning car crash, I just can't look away.
Also, if you say Jasper Bat Jr. is a good boss fight 3 times, Roger Ebert comes back from the dead and says, "Sorry lads, video games are art now," then disappears. Try it out!
Video games with a lot of content can be a very good thing. However, it gives you much more room for characters to not be as fleshed out, or just even be likable at all. Which brings me to the gaming question. Minecraft. I have my fair share of hours in Minecraft. I even used my own money to buy a Minecraft realm one time like an absolute fool, and my bills remain unpaid to this day because of it. In your endless Minecraft adventure, there are a lot of faces you will meet along the way. Not many of them are faces I'm a big fan of. The stupid pigs that keep looking at me funny, and the site which is just a useless block, notch's Twitter account, or baby zombies. All incredibly irritating in their own right, but at the end of the day, they're just that. Irritating. Nothing more. There is, however, one character that is the definition of hate and despair. A character so distasteful, he had to be removed from the game itself after so many user complaints, and that is of course the infamous HeraBrian. HeraBrian has gone down in video game history as one of the worst creations to ever be put in a video game. And why exactly is that? How can a character that only shows up randomly for a couple of seconds even be unlikable at all? Well, much like that one cousin in the family that your mother forces you to hang out with because he doesn't have any friends, it is because he simply exists to give the player a bad time. HeraBrian will grief your house as soon as you log out of your account, and he won't even be there to take responsibility for his wrongdoings once you log in again. All your hard work on that wooden house, burned down. All those diamonds you risked your life to earn, he used them to make a diamond shovel. A diamond shovel! No one uses a diamond shovel! If you thought making your Minecraft experience a living hell was enough for this guy, I have barely scratched the surface. Because HeraBrian decided it would be a funny idea to mock the player even further by completely stealing our look. The only thing it does different is having completely white eyes, which is incredibly insulting to the player in my opinion. If you're gonna be such an asshole to us, at least be an original one. I don't know which moron at Mojang thought it was a good idea to add this horrible character to an otherwise fun game, but it almost completely ruined the experience for me, and I most likely wouldn't have touched the game ever again if they didn't add that patch where they removed all traces of HeraBrian from the game. That might have been the smartest decision Mojang has ever made, and let's hope to God that we never have to suffer through a character like this in a video game ever again.
When you think of iconic video game characters, it's hard to avoid this silent protagonist trope. However, there is usually a limit to that character's silence. Oftentimes, these few instances of speech are an iconic aspect of these usually silent characters, and make them more charming. Let's play a guessing game, to prove how recognizable and important these seemingly minor vocal quips are.
It's me, Mario!
Whoa!
Is that you, Gordon? How did you know?
Oh, look at that! It's the greatest video game character of all time. Spoiler, he really isn't. Gordon Freeman is nothing more than a bland bore that won't shave and mooches off the success of Half-Life and the talent put into it. Half-Life and its sequel both excel at environmental storytelling. So many little details regarding the story's tone, the condition of the game's universe, and how the characters living in that universe process everything that's happening around them. So many highlights in the Half-Life cast, such as Alex and the G-Man. And everyone drools over Gordon Freeman instead? There's nothing likable, endearing, or particularly memorable about him. And for a supposedly badass character that is supposedly one of the medium's greatest, that's really fucking frustrating. Apparently, Gordon is a brilliant character because it's a blank state. You're supposed to immerse yourself into the role of Gordon Freeman. Okay? Then why does he, the protagonist of a first-person shooter, have an appearance that is clearly meant to be iconic? Oh, by the way, really gamers? This is your ideal image of a badass? A hipster social justice warrior that won't shave and always wears a costume that you'd find in a Star Trek convention? Ooh, what a mighty foe, I'm surely impressed. Also, if he's supposed to be a blank state, then why does he have a detailed backstory? Let alone something that barely anyone, let alone the average Half-Life player, can relate to? Being from Seattle is one thing, idolizing Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking is one thing, but graduating from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a PhD in theoretical physics and then becoming a physicist? That's niche as hell! Most people don't have a degree, let alone a PhD, and most people aren't scientists, let alone physicists! How the hell is an average person supposed to easily project themselves into a character with such a specific backstory and such a specific profession? This motherfucker isn't an average guy! I can't relate to him just by knowing what I just told you! It doesn't help that his environment does not warrant such a tremendous silent treatment. Gordon, despite his high qualifications, always ends up doing mere manual labor, which the games do point out, yet we never get to learn about how he feels. Not even just a tiny little implication. Nothing! Nothing! Other characters interact with them, team up with them, and comment on whatever situation they and Gordon get stuck in, but Gordon says fuck all! No development, not a sigh or chuckle or scream. You just see a crowbar, the gravity gun, and if you take a look at the box art, it's some bespectacled bitch that won't shave! And this is supposed to be interesting? Okay. Let's take a look at another character from the same developers in the same universe as Half-Life. Shell from Portal. Completely the same as Gordon Freeman from a gameplay perspective, a silent protagonist meant for us to project ourselves onto. Here's the thing, nothing about Shell's appearance particularly sticks out, unlike Gordon. Shell's backstory is left intentionally ambiguous due to a bunch of contradictory statements from different sources, unlike Gordon. The Portal games' settings are extremely claustrophobic, and the characters that interact with Shell don't really warrant a response from her, unlike Half-Life's setting and the characters that interact with Gordon. And at least with Portal, people are smart enough to acknowledge GLaDOS as the star, while with Half-Life, everyone is touching themselves over this dull bastard that won't fucking shave!
Ah, Umineko. What can be said about Umineko? It has the music, characters, story, and also the characters. But for a list like this, you're probably thinking, Goda, right? Well, no actually. Although I do hate him for being the culprit and also being a very rude person in general, he's a good cook and I know he means well. But before I reveal what I say, just gonna pull up this bad boy, and yeah, that should be good. Now, I'll say it in red. My most hated video game character of all time is Furido Erica. Ooh, I freaking hate Furico Erica so much. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll probably remember on my earlier list, Top 10 Cyberbullies in Gaming, that Furido Erica was on number 7 for that list. But why is that? Why would I choose Furido over everyone else? Now, I would like to clear that 1, that list was based not on how much I like them, but how much of a cyberbully they were. And 2, I believe I mentioned on that list that I loathed Erica the most. But why is that? For 1, she is so freaking rude. Like, she just barges in and talks about chopsticks all the time. Like, yeah, I don't care about your superior lifestyle, Erica. Go to your room. And if that doesn't make any worse, she constantly trolls people and trying to prove them wrong. Like, what? Thank God YouTube wasn't a thing in 1986. And worst of all, in Chapter 6, she bullies a little girl because she wanted to believe in magic? Okay, that is going too far, Furido Erica. You know, Furido Erica is just a very, very mean person, and I don't like her very much. If she was a real person, I would call the principal and tell her she's saying very mean things because I don't like her very much, and she keeps being mean. Ah! All right, that's it. Time to unleash my rage. Alright. I'll say it in red once more. Frick you, Furido Erica.
This is all your fault!
It was not even last year that the vaunted fighting franchise known as Soul Calibur got a successful reboot, and as a longtime fan, I couldn't be happier about that. But let's be real, as soon as I mentioned Soul Calibur, some of you immediately figured out where this was going. For those who haven't, let me catch you up to speed. Soul Calibur fans spent half of the 2010s wondering if our beloved series would come back from the grave into which the underperforming Soul Calibur 5 placed it. That scenario was caused by a variety of factors, but I can tell you this much: the game's protagonist sure didn't help. Patroclus Alexander is what happens when you get 4 edgy teenage incels in a room and all of them have different ideas of what the ideal hero is like. One of them decided that he'd be a racist dumbass, and that's why his first notable action on screen is gleefully murdering a homeless man who looks malfested.
You're pale and filthy. You must be a malfested as well.
No, my lord. I am not one of them.
Is that so? How unfortunate there's no way to prove it.
First impressions matter, and the fact that this guy's first impression is this utterly horrific immediately alienates him from the audience that's supposed to sympathize with him and inhabit him throughout the journey. The second of those incels decided that he'd be an ungrateful dickmunch to anyone and everyone he comes across, and so he regularly spits in the face of people who are just trying to be nice and help him out. One of them decided that he should tread the well-worn path of an anti-hero and get better as a person by the end of the ordeal, but that poor bastard's idea was mangled by his unfortunate inability to actually make character growth organic, or make any sense whatsoever. Okay, in all fairness to that guy, Soul Calibur 5 was rushed to high hell and the story was only 1/4 of its intended length, but I can't examine characters based on what could have been, now can I? And the last of them? Well, he thought to project his utter lack of a sex life onto good old Pat Rat here, so he decided to give him and his sister vaguely incestuous undertones. Because of course he did. Okay, so I can't actually prove that that's how this atrocity came to be, but if you have a better explanation, I would very much love to hear it. Patroclus dedicates every last second of screen time to being as unlikable as possible, to the point where I'm not sure if he was meant to be a troubled anti-hero and the writing team just fired cannons into their feet, or if he's supposed to be the unrepentant deranged sociopath that the game actually presents. He does have his token bits of tragic backstory thrown in there to seemingly justify his acts, but in the process of doing so they kinda forgot to give him any redeeming qualities. Like, any at all. It actually got so dismal that sometime after Soul Calibur 5's release, the developers took various measures to actively throw him under the bus. And the last-minute turnaround that's supposed to serve as character growth is so hilariously weak that it honestly comes off as a pantomime of fake heroism, which only makes me want to slug him square in the nose a second time. And maybe a third time. And after a couple hundred punches or so, the only nice thing I have to say about this shambling pile of shit is that his revolting presence was at least limited to one game, and now we can thankfully play Soul Calibur to our heart's content without acknowledging his existence on any level of conception. The day I can stop looking at that putrid face is the day I can finally know something resembling peace. Fuck this guy.
We'll get tons of complaints from the gamers.
The case for this list is that hated characters are either annoying, rife with unlikable splotches, or just a very bad vibe to be sitting with. I mean, fair enough, I wouldn't sit next to Kane and Lynch either. This situation's a bit different. I don't dislike this dude for what he is, rather for what he is not. Poetry, bro. Killer is Dead is already a very vacuous and unfocused game, but it has that Suda 5-1 potential of having a personality to run with to keep you entertained all the way. Or at least I thought it would have. Your main character Mondo has more personality in his robot arm than he does in the rest of his body, which displays the uncapped potential for writing a cyber-era assassin that could have had more of a motive than to just Mr. Follow for the entire game while staring at bosoms and bars every alternate chapter of the way. The man's last name is literally Zapper, and he still couldn't be at least a little bit zany to match. It would have been a better fit to gift him a famous surname that reps milquetoast quirkiness better, like Koenig or DeMarco. He doesn't remember when he got his robot arm, which is actually just an excuse to not have to give him depth. And his hedonistic motives aren't development of a man who is passive about his job because he's over it, or he's experienced a lot of trouble through it, or like, anything. He just seems passive because it's clear no effort was put into his story. I don't think Mondo is bad as a personality, he's just bad as a character. It's an example of what writing feels like when you're on autopilot making a game. Half his characteristics you know about are just excuses for throwing male fantasy fodder into the fold. The one rogue bullet point on the Suda 5-1 wiki trivia section offers a really far-fetched consideration that might not even be a serious point about Mondo, and yet it's the wildest, most violently interesting fact about him in comparison to everything else. Apparently he was a member of the team that assassinated Osama bin Laden. Bloody hell, could that have been in the game? I'd take it over the next blind date minigame.
When it comes to franchises that usually gets characters right, I usually think of Kirby. I mean, we have Meta Knight, who's a badass swordsman, King Dedede, who is just flat out hilarious, and even Kirby himself for being such a great mascot character. But the best of all of them is Waddle Dee. Yeah, I said it. Waddle Dees are the embodiment of everything great about the Kirby series. They're cute, they're everywhere. There's even one Waddle Dee that's basically a main character, that being Bandana Dee. And no, they do not count as enemies, they are friends. I even have my own Waddle Dee plush, and he is the most adorable little thing in all of existence. He's got a cute little panda tail, and if you look in the front, you can see— Ah! What is this? Look, I respect HAL Laboratories for creating a great franchise with great games and great characters, but I have a very hard time trying to justify any of this. I can just imagine the board meeting for designing this little puke. Okay guys, we have a groundwork for the basic enemy, but we need to start designing more. Any ideas? Bruh, brilliant! I'm just so annoyed by this thing's existence that I can't even put it into words. I mean, it's so hard for me to try to write how much I just flat hate Waddle Dee. Seriously, they took everything that was fun and wholesome about the Waddle Dee and made it into a disgusting abomination. A giant eyeball for a face is just disgusting. And giving it 2 eyelashes? Sometimes 3? Sometimes even on the top of its head? Why? That's not good character design, it's lazy. But you know, it's the first Kirby game. The next one I hear is gonna have a mechanic where you can absorb the enemy and take their abilities. Surely something will replace— Are you kidding me? So they just made this thing into a series staple like Waddle Dee because God hates me or something. Well, thankfully there's some justice in this world because Doo doesn't show up anywhere near as often in promotional material as Dee does. But is that really enough? Does that really make me happy that it exists in the first place? It's not like it has much to do with the beam ability anyway. Like, look at this. You inhale a Waddle Dee, who need I remind you is a freak with 1 eye and pubes, and Kirby gets a hat and a wand? Are you freaking me? Even in later Kirby games, there are other enemies and projectiles that get the beam ability anyway, so what's the point? Heck, even in Star Allies, they knew they had to stretch to make the comparison worthy, so they gave Waddle Dee the same hat and wand, even though it could still shoot beams from its eyeball! And yes, despite it being a normal enemy and not really a singular character most of the time, I feel like my hatred is totally justified. I mean, look, there are 2 of them on screen, so there, that's like twice the hatred. I don't even know what else to say. This was such a bad and pointless idea. Next!
When the family approached me about doing a list of our most hated characters, I was ecstatic. I would finally get a chance to talk about someone I hate more than Sonic the Hedgehog hates cops. This guy's a character with almost no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and just thinking about him pisses me off. I am, of course, talking about Brad Marchand of the Boston Bruins. Marchand is a disgusting player who truly encapsulates everything wrong with not even just the NHL games, but the sport of hockey itself. Hockey is supposed to be a clean sport, played with honor, but Marchand wouldn't know clean and honorable if it skated up to him and intentionally low-bridged him, causing a concussion. That's just one example though, you say to your screen. Well, then let's go over some of the other shitty things Marchand has done to another person on the ice, shall we? 1. As a rookie, he hit Blue Jackets forward RJ Umberger with a blindside elbow to the head. 2. Hypocrite that he is, he claimed Jeff Skinner was a slewfoot artist. He then got suspended for 2 games for slewfooting Rangers forward Derek Brassard. Oops. 3. He got suspended for low-bridging another player, this time Senators defenseman Mark Borowiecki. 4. He whacked Lightning defenseman Jake Dotchin in the junk with his stick. 5. He lunged at Devils forward Marcus Johansson with an elbow to the head, again from his blind side. And this is all just the stuff he got suspended for, not to mention the 4 separate fines for his other dirty plays. So he can dish out dirty plays like no one's business. But what does he do when he's not doing something worthy of supplemental discipline? Well, nevertheless, the worst part in all this, what makes me hate him more than a Matt Cook or a Sean Avery, it's not just the malicious dirty play, it's not just the whiny, hypocritical, constant diving and embellishment, it's that he's actually fucking good at hockey! It's not like he's some 4th line plug that needs to play physical just to make some kind of impact and be noticed. He's actually skilled! He doesn't need to take unnecessary risks. It is a conscious choice of his. He willingly goes out on the ice and thinks about how to hurt people. That is why I hate Brad Marchand. Also, he looks like a fucking rat.
Ah, Celeste. This truly was a game on everyone's minds last year when it came out, and with good reason. It has fun but tricky level design that really pushes what the player can do. It tells an engrossing story of a battle with depression. It has a soundtrack that kicks your ass just as much as some of the later levels, and of course, it has an endearing cast of characters. Except for one teensy little problem. even with all the other perfect things this game does, it can't escape having this big, stinky blotch in the middle of it. You meet Mr. Oshiro in the 3rd chapter of the game, and while he seems like a nice guy at first, he very quickly reveals his true colors. Immediately after Madeline tells him that she just wants to leave his stupid hotel, he turns right around and completely ignores her. As you chase him through one of the most infuriating levels in the game, he keeps pressuring Madeline to stay at the hotel, and you listen to him drone on and on about how amazing the place is. I'm glad that the only voice acting in this game is gibberish, because listening to him babble for real would be a pain. But you know what makes this nasty little poltergeist even worse? He is the laziest, most ungrateful person you will ever meet. In the middle of the chapter, you're forced to go around cleaning up his hotel for him, while he just complains about what a mess it is. While Madeline is making the place look like whatever the opposite of a total crap hole is, he's moaning about how making the customers do the work is bad for business. Hey buddy, if you're really that concerned about it, maybe you could lift a finger and do something to help. Or just like, do anything besides being so shit. Oh, and when you're done sorting out all his crap, he has the audacity to act like it was all the hotel staff who did it. He doesn't care at all about Madeline, he just wants to make himself look good. All of these things would make Mr. Oshiro an annoying character for sure, but what makes him truly transcend to a hated one is what he does at the end of the chapter. When Madeline comes out and insults him, he goes full rage mode, and then the player has to sit through one of the most mind-bogglingly hard sections of the game. He sits at the edge of the screen, lunging at you again and again without giving you a second to rest. The last section of the chapter might as well be an auto-scroller, and we all know how fun those are. Dying to him over and over, you really start to see how much a load of crap this whole thing is. His laziness, his self-centeredness, and this stupid final section of the chapter, they all come together to make a character who you can't help but hate. And when the whole thing is done, what does the game want you to do? Just move on and forget the whole thing even happened. I get that this is supposed to be a game about battling your demons, but Mr. Oshiro is a step above that. He is a detestable, rotten, infuriating old man who is never anything but a complete bother. For all I care, he can go to hell and never come back.
I'm truly sorry, really.
In the wonderful world of Dark Souls, there are plenty of people that you can trust. We've got my homies like the Onion Bro,
Oh, what's on your mind, friend?
Night Motherfucking Solaire,
I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight.
and even the Golem Flipper himself, Iron Tarkus. With all these friends, it's hard to find someone that you would hate. But wouldn't you fucking know it, there's one vile, awful, positively horrifying bastard in the realm of Dark Souls. And his name is Trusty fucking Patches. Should you ever encounter this disgusting son of a bitch, you should murder him on the spot. You may be asking yourself, why on earth is this man so hated? He seems so trustworthy, it's even in his name, Trusty Patches. Well, you'd be dead fucking wrong. There are plenty of reasons to hate Trusty Patches, including, and not limited to, he's bald, he pushes you down holes, he's greedy, he doesn't like clerics, even Lortrek doesn't like him. When confronted by cancel culture, he'll just beg for forgiveness.
Well, that's a fine shame. I'm truly sorry, really.
He's ugly. I hate him. He's a bastard. He's an atheist. He's trans-universal. He's probably in your favorite game too, just waiting to fuck you up. He appears in two of the worst places in-game. He'll flip a bridge on you, killing you instantly, and I fucking hate him.
This is what I do, my friend. The trinkets I'll be stripping off your corpse, that's the real treasure.
Trusty Patches is the epitome of absolute scum, and the fact that he shows up in every single fucking From Software game makes my blood boil. Long story short, never trust a man named Trusty Patches.
Ugh, you knew it was going to come down to this eventually. While the Kingdom Hearts series is truly one that has captured the hearts of many a gamer across the world, Let's be honest with ourselves, the characters can be incredibly hit or miss. Yes, the series has had its fair share of highlights, but man, there are some stinkers, such as the likes of Zaldin, or Larxene, ugh. However, in the grand scheme of mediocre to terrible Kingdom Hearts characters, there is one rotten egg that has slipped under the cracks until today. There is one member of the organization that truly needs to pay for the crimes that he has committed. Everyone, meet Vexen. Dear Lord, the fact that this abominable cretin has managed to avoid everyone else's radar is beyond my comprehension. But now, it is the time to put my unfathomable rage towards this pathetic man to rest. Let us begin with Vexen's appearance. Say what you will of Nomura's character designs, the slick designs of Organization 13 members are truly wonderful. Whether they're simple, goofy, or just plain epic, they're certainly a well-designed bunch. Yeah, that is until the sewer rat joins the party! From head to toe, Vexen manages to be completely grotesque throughout! From his greasy hair, to his bug-tired eyes, to his DreamWorks face, Vexen manages to make me furious through and through, and is an absolute disgrace to the rest of the organization straight off the bat. Vexen also manages to somehow be the absolute most obnoxious character throughout his incredibly limited run in the series. Not only is he completely egotistical, he manages to be such a little bitch. He talks down to his fellow organization members about his supposed superiority, but when a character like Marluxia talks him down, he cowers like a total pussy. Like, come on, at least try to be threatening. You're ranked 4th in the organization. That's not to mention his creepy obsession with experimenting with the replicants in the series. But what can you expect when this greased up fuck can't even get along with his own members? And oh god, we haven't even talked about his boss fights. Alright, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Vexen. All of the fights sucked in Rechain, but you have zero fucking excuse for your awful data fight in 2 Final Mix. Alright, so what's the gimmick here? In this fight, you'll be chased around by Vexen's weird circle, and if you're caught in it, Vexen will collect data of you and create data clones of Sora. Doesn't seem so bad. But oh wait, slight problem. Even if you're in the air, so long as you're just under it, it will collect data on you, and the fight becomes a fucking minefield. Not to mention this fucking turd is shooting ice spells at you the whole goddamn time! And don't even get me started on his weapon of choice. I just got myself started. So another thing I can say about the organization that they got right was its incredible weapon choice. They were all great, simple, and stylized. Now let's get back to Vexen. And his main weapon of choice is a dinky little shield. Alright, you know what? That's not immediately terrible. Just look at Goofy. Oh, but this isn't an ordinary shield. No. It's one that makes no sense! There are spikes littered all throughout the fucking thing, yet it'll never attempt to stab or even bash Sora's head in. Not like it'd do much anyways. The sharpest point is facing the opposite fucking direction! And even still, it has a fucking health bar. In other words, the shield can break, rendering its purpose completely, utterly, and totally mute. Well, thankfully, once you're done with his awful boss fight, he perishes and he's over with. Until Kingdom Hearts 3, that is. Gah! So in the end, what are we left with? Nothing more than a fucking bitchy, inferior, annoying, just a fucking travesty in every sense of the word, and a disgrace to the organization he partakes in. Even attempting to redeem this trash heap just ended up to be a waste of everyone's time. And dear God, if I even had to just so much as look at his stupid shield again. Grrr. Grrr!
Goodbye.
I swear to God, I live and die by this blue gumball son of a bitch. Okay, let's be real here. There is always something from the Sonic series to make our lists, and there's something to fit the criteria of not just ours, but almost any to this day. From mech bosses, to gods, to female characters, to supporting characters, and even Sky-themed levels. And to add on to this, hated characters certainly isn't an exception. Big the Cat was the first subject of hate, but nowadays that's become more ironic than anything. big fishing adventure, anyone? To make a very long list short, there are a lot of characters that I could talk about from this series, and they're hated for one reason or another. And I'm serious, I mean a lot. Originally, I was actually going to talk about Zavok, mainly because to me, he's just generic big bad villain number 455. Who just looks like a big red teddy bear who wore his turtleneck too high one day. Problem is, though, Zavok was never supposed to be an in-depth character. I mean, I hope not at least. So let's go to the most recent game in the series to find our answer, shall we? That's right, it's none other than Infinite from Sonic Forces. To start with, a little bit of background. Infinite was supposedly part of a mercenary group of jackals known as the Jackal Squad. What a very inventive name that is. The Jackal Squad attacks Eggman's base hoping to loot all of his technology to sell it for a bounty. After coming into contact with the Phantom reboot possessed by Eggman himself, a glimpse of the future is shown to both of them, and seeing eye to eye, they form an alliance. Later on in episode Shadow, Eggman's base is under attack, to which Infinite and the Jackal Squad are sent in. Only for them all to be taken out by Shadow, like
taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Infinite, on the other hand, ashamed of his loss, and also seemingly the only one alive, dons his new mask, the power of the Phantom Ruby, as well as the alias Infinite, and continues to serve Eggman. If you didn't read any of the prequel comics or play episode Shadow, then to you, Infinite is just a mysterious shadowed figure who shows up along all these bad guys and just randomly beats up Sonic, with none of his friends helping him, mind you. Cue 6 months of torture in a single text box, Sonic escapes because Zavok, even as a replica, sucks at his job, and Infinite is tasked to put him down. After the first fight, Infinite claims that despite everything that's happened,
you're not even worth the effort to finish off.
Prompting Sonic and the Avatar to strike back, for that to be his undoing, and for him to just disappear. What a way to go. As for his personality, or lack thereof I should say, Infinite is incredibly boastful, often putting others beneath him, and he talks in a very slow, calm, and collected manner, which to me is not only not very threatening, mind you, but also very boring. And it's natural for me to hate Infinite because of this, and his actions, and his personality, or lack thereof. However, the main reason I hate Infinite goes a lot further than that, because Infinite was actually built up to be something. When we got our first glimpse of Infinite aside from just his standard appearance, yeah sure, Sonic was getting pummeled with little explanation, but it had some potential with some good writing, because I've seen a ton of bad guys who apparently faster and stronger than Sonic, or can beat Sonic in something, but Sega really wanted to put emphasis on how this is Infinite and he can beat Sonic, when he's none of those things in the final result. When I saw the episode Shadow cutscene of the old Infinite, I actually was a bit interested in him. Yeah, sure, he's a dick at first, but he at least sounded aggressive, and he had an actual personality, and he had motives too. Even after he becomes Infinite, the powers granted to him by the Phantom Ruby are actually really cool, and his use over reality manipulation is one of the most interesting things about him. Looking back at the previous villains in the franchise, Chaos, whilst completely silent, was always relevant and something to be feared actually. Shadow was a badass rival and the anti-Sonic we kinda needed in the series, and Metal Sonic was Eggman's strongest robot, even going so far as to overthrow him in Heroes. Even Eggman himself is funny and entertaining, and he can also be threatening as well. Infinite, on the other hand, has none of these qualities that make these villains good or fun or interesting to watch, and is just another boring, edgy, more than likely one-time villain. It's a shame, really. Overall, Infinite is arguably one of the biggest missed potentials for the series. He lacks personality, has no depth to his character, seemingly comes out of nowhere, and also leaves out of nowhere as well. And to think, I'd rather have him in Team Sonic Racing over Zavok still.
Fire Emblem series collection of lords ranges from very good to very bad, not good. You got your great lords that are well written and fantastic on the battlefield, like Ike, Sigurd, Seliph, Hector, and Leaf. Lords that are not nearly as good but have their own merits, like Chrom, Eliwood, Alm, Celica, and Marth. And then you got your lords that are bad in the battlefield, like Lyn, or not as interesting, like Ephraim, Micaiah, Erica, and then there's Corrin, who has a personality comparable to plastic wrappers inside the belly of a bird, but at least Corrin's an incredible unit in the battlefield, whereas that that cannot be said about the nationalist garbage that is Roy. Pinpointing what exactly is wrong with Roy is not difficult. In fact, there's plenty to talk about. We've seen our fair share of second generation lords like Seliph, Leaf, and Lucina, and each one of them has a trait that distinguishes them from their parents, Sigurd, Quan, and Kron respectively. There's nothing interesting about Roy. He's just a body that spits out words and nothing interesting. But his character isn't the only bad thing about him. No, that just wasn't enough. In the battlefield, Roy is an absolute waste of a unit and a waste of everyone's time. His stats are terrible, man, like Watchog bad. His growths are underwhelming, so he's gonna be unreliable for the majority of the game. Rutger and Fur proved to be much better sword units, thus crippling Roy's usability. Roy can't promote until chapter 21, where he gets the Binding Blade, where he finally gets something that makes him useful. But oh, wait, that's right, the Binding Blade can only be used 20 times, so he's still useless after you get the blade! It doesn't end there. Imagine being so useless and unwanted that you make your debut in Smash Bros. As a promotional tactic. Nobody knew who Roy was, like, what? Why? Corrin did the same thing over a decade later, but at least he was interesting to play as. Not only that, but imagine being a clone of one of the best characters in the game, but somehow managed to be ridiculously worse. He's so bad that they didn't even bother bringing him back for Brawl in Smash 4. He was DLC, and I can tell you this right now, no one bothered to buy him because he was so bad no one played him. Besides, Roy Koopa, the better Roy, was already in the game, so there's no point in playing Roy! Roy's a fail of a Smash character, disappointment to his father, a character so boring that the developers forgot to give him good stats, and just an unpleasant sight to behold.
No, it's fun.
For my money, the Mass Effect trilogy has the best ensemble cast of any video game I've ever played. Each character receives a deep and satisfying arc which you helped shape. This means whenever a poorly written pile of absolute garbage shows up, it feels all the more apparent. And there is no one more garbage than Kai fucking Lang! This guy. This fucking guy! Kai Lang is the singular worst character I've ever had the displeasure of witnessing in a video game. First of all, just fucking look at him! What sort of edgelord garbage is this? This looks like if Raiden was actually the sissy shit everyone said he was!
I know. Don't judge a book by its cover.
But I've done a fucking doctoral thesis on this book, and I know the cover is the best part about it! Kai Lang is introduced in Mass Effect 3 as a sort of rival character to Shepard.
This isn't an inherently bad idea, but there becomes a problem. The end of the world is kind of happening, so why do we have any reason to care about this guy? The answer the writers came to? Killing off beloved characters.
The first time you see him, he goes and murders Thane! Thane right there in the box art of Mass Effect 2 Krios! I know Thane was close to death anyway, but someone as dignified and badass of a character as him deserves a far better send-off than this! But wait, you say? Thane can just die in the Mass Effect 2 during the suicide mission! You can give him the death he deserves there! Oh god, I wish. If Thane isn't there to be killed by this walking dumpster fire, they go and have Captain Kiri, the man who delivered the best speech in Mass Effect history, killed!
And later on, he even has the chance to kill Miranda, also on the cover art of Mass Effect 2, Lawson! This is a horrendously cheap way to set up a conflict and is the perfect representation of Kai himself. Cheap!
Kai has literally no character outside of magical cutscene powers. Any motives for why he joined Cerberus? He's just a dick. Why does he have such a deep hatred for Shepard? He's just a dick. Why is it that in a book that introduces him prior to Mass Effect 3, he just breaks into Anderson's apartment to eat some fucking cereal? I don't even have anything for that one. He's such a fucking douchebag that he even sends you a fake email just to taunt you! How do you even have my email, Kai Lang? Who the fuck are you? Oh god almighty, please let me rip this fucker apart, limb from limb! That's it? Just a fucking stab? You know the worst part about Kai Lang, though? It's not even his character. It's what he represents. Think about him. His stupid, edgy appearance, his lack of any real personality outside of sniveling douche, his cowardice, his trolling you online. He's a gamer. Kai Lang is the worst video game character of all time because he's also the most honest, representing everything about a truly awful, irredeemable, and shitty community in a way that is almost unparalleled. He is the worst video game character because he's the one we deserve the most, and for that we look at him in hatred, for he is but what we see in our own reflection.
No! No! No!
I'm the N7 Commander, and if you're watching this, you're obviously a gamer yourself, and I'm here to tell you, it's not too late. Turn off the games. Turn on your